The vast halls of the palace shimmered under the light of countless golden chandeliers, each crystal drop dancing like a star fallen from the desert sky. A scent of amber and oud wove through the warm air, merging with the soft whispers of silk gowns and the quiet power that lingered in every marble column. Here, in this realm of untold wealth, the billionaire sheikh moved with a calm that masked the storm beneath. His eyes, dark pools of mystery, scanned the distant dunes beyond his oasis, reflecting not the luxury that surrounded him, but the shadows of secrets he carried. To those who saw only the crown land and lavish feasts, he was an untouchable enigma. To himself, merely a man trapped by the weight of a legacy stronger than gold. The cold edge of his control was a shield against the vulnerabilities he dared not show. Far away, in the bustling city's modest office, Layla wrestled with a loneliness that clawed at her every breath. The harsh fluorescence above flickered slightly, casting long shadows on the cluttered desk, where unpaid bills sat in a neat stack. She was a woman worn by invisibility, navigating the sharp stings of judgment so often masked as concern from family and friends. The weight of their expectations, marriage, stability, companionship, pressed on her until the idea manifested like a desperate plea: hire a boyfriend for $500. It seemed trivial, a small act of rebellion against a life that refused to bend. If only she could craft an illusion convincing enough to silence the questions, to protect her heart from the needle of loneliness. Little did she know that the man she was about to meet was anything but ordinary. Beneath a carefully tailored suit and a practiced smile, the billionaire sheikh disguised himself in anonymity, stepping into a role far removed from the throne he commanded. Their first meeting crackled with tension. She held a delicate confidence, masked by a timid gaze and a tentative smile, while he exuded a quiet dominance, his every move calibrated and deliberate. Words were exchanged, not merely sentences, but tests and gambits cloaked in civility. Layla's heart, guarded like a fortress, couldn't help but stir at the unexpected kindness in his gaze, though suspicion crept beneath every smile. "You must forgive my bluntness," he said, voice low and smooth like desert silk caressing bare skin. "But what exactly do you expect for $500? Layla's cheeks flushed, a mixture of embarrassment and defiance. "A promise that the man beside me will pretend long enough to make everyone stop asking questions, even if only for a while." His eyes flickered, perhaps an echo of something more profound, before the subtle curve of a smile softened the lines of his expression. "Then I suppose I am the fortunate one, to be entrusted with such a fragile bargain." They lingered in shared silences, each word unspoken, heavier than the last. The palace's distant lights twinkled, oblivious to the fragile game beginning beneath its vast domes, where power tangled quietly with vulnerability. Yet as the night deepened, a shadow slipped beyond the edges of the luxurious mirage. A glint caught in his cufflink, a discreet emblem, hardly noticeable, but heavy with meaning. Layla's gaze faltered, a flicker of unease rippling behind her composure. Did she just glimpse the truth lurking beneath his guise? And if she had, What would it mean for the fragile thread of trust weaving between them? And before the next secret of this lavish palace unfolds, make sure you're already part of our caravan of tales. Many fates are yet to be written, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Leave your like if the heart of this billionaire sheikh has already captivated you. Tell me in the comments, from which city are you following this saga? And what twist do you think is coming? Your passion for these dramas inspires us to continue. Thank you for being with us. The moon hung low over the endless sands, its silver glow spilling into the palace windows, where shadows danced like ghosts between gilded pillars. Inside, the silence was thick, swallowing even the softest footfall. The billionaire sheikh stood near the marble balcony, his silhouette sharp against the night sky, the desert wind lifting the edge of his cloak with a whisper that seemed to carry secrets. His thoughts were a storm barely contained, each ripple beneath the calm surface more turbulent than the last. The meeting with Layla replayed in his mind, like a delicate puzzle, her guarded eyes, the faint tremor in her voice, the defiant set of her shoulders. She was unlike any woman who had ever entered his domain. Not naive, not broken, but fiercely whole, a flame threatening to engulf the carefully constructed walls around his heart. Yet beneath that flame flickered a shadow of doubt. He discreetly fingered the emblem on his cufflink, the mark of a power he bore but seldom revealed. This insignia was the weight of generations pressing against his soul, a legacy of both privilege and chains. To trust a stranger, to wear a mask before her, could cause the carefully built facades to crumble. But the thought of the loneliness she confessed gnawed at him, stirring an unfamiliar urge to protect, to stay. The corridors echoed as footsteps approached, soft and purposeful. A servant, bearing a silver tray with a single crystal glass of amber liquid, paused respectfully. "My lord, your evening repast awaits." The voice was low, tinged with loyalty and caution. He nodded, turning away from the desert's vastness, the glass cool in his palm. The bitterness of the drink was a faint reflection of the bitterness he tried to hide from the world. Meanwhile, miles away, Layla sat by the narrow window of her cramped apartment, the city lights flickering like distant stars. Caught in a permanent twilight, she clutched the contract they'd signed earlier, the ink still fresh, the weight of her decision heavier than any debt. A hired boyfriend, an illusion to keep the whispers at bay. But something in her stirred, a restless hope, fragile yet insistent. Her mind drifted back to the encounter. The billionaire sheikh, the man who had slipped into the role as naturally as breathing, had looked at her with something that didn't belong to the deal. A softness, a hesitation behind his commanding exterior. But who was he really? The emblem on his cufflink haunted her thoughts. That small detail she almost overlooked now felt like a missing key to a locked door. She hadn't dared to ask, and yet the question burned in her gaze every time she met his eyes. The next day, the palace stirred with the quiet hum of preparation. Courtiers moved like shadows across polished floors, whispers of the upcoming celebration threading through the air. The billionaire sheikh rarely indulged in such displays, But tonight was different. Tonight, a dance of appearances would mask a deeper game. In the private chambers, he rehearsed the role he would play for the court. A man detached, enigmatic, yet unshakably dominant. His mind, however, was elsewhere, tangled in the fragile web he and Layla had begun to spin. A soft knock broke the silence. "Enter," he commanded, voice steady, but eyes alert. The door opened to reveal his confidant, a woman whose loyalty was as sharp as the daggers concealed beneath the palace's extravagant tapestries. "I have intelligence," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "that there are forces within the emirate who see your arrangement as a threat. They watch, waiting for a misstep." He narrowed his eyes, the flicker of concern now crossing into calculated resolve. "Then they shall have their misstep," he murmured, a deadly smile curling the edge of his lips. "But not from me." Outside, Layla prepared for a meeting she had reluctantly agreed to, a gathering of influential families, their eyes already heavy with silent judgments and veiled scorn. Her heart pounded beneath the weight of counterfeit smiles and forced pleasantries. As she entered the grand hall, eyes instantly fell upon her, and then on him. The Billionaire Sheikh. His presence was a tempest in the room, drawing every gaze like moths to a flame. Yet, when their eyes met across the sea of aristocracy, an unspoken understanding passed between them. A fragile alliance forged in the fires of necessity, doubt, and something perilously close to trust. Whispers trailed behind them like shadows. Who is she? Why would the Sheikh choose such a woman? Is this strategy or scandal? Layla felt the weight of their scrutiny, but there was a strange strength in his steady gaze that anchored her wavering courage. In the privacy of a secluded alcove, their brief exchange was a tempest of restrained emotions. "You don't belong to their world," he stated, voice like velvet edged with steel. "Neither do you," she replied, eyes ablaze. A silence fell, filled with questions neither dared speak aloud. Then the moment shattered. The chatter from the crowd spilled over, a whispered name cutting through the haze, one that could unravel everything. "Malik al-Farid," a voice hissed nearby, "the rival who has sworn to destroy the Sheikh's legacy." The Billionaire Sheikh stiffened, his jaw tightening. The name was poison in the air, a threat lurking like a viper in the sands. Layla's gaze shifted, her heart clenching with unspoken fear. "You knew he'd come for you," she whispered, her voice trembling with the weight of possibility. He looked at her then, the mask slipping for an instant to reveal the man beneath, the one shackled by legacies, threats, and a past he desperately tried to outrun. "Yes," he admitted, "and if Malik finds out about us, everything will shatter." The room's warmth felt suffocating now, as if the walls themselves conspired to bury them beneath the weight of secrets and enemies. His hand brushed against hers, a fleeting touch charged with meaning, a silent vow amid the chaos. But just as hope dared to flicker, a shadow passed behind the heavy curtains. A figure, concealed, watching, waiting. The Billionaire Sheikh's eyes narrowed. The game was no longer just about appearances. It was survival, and the next move would be deadly. The grand hall had barely cooled from the murmurs that rippled like desert wind when the whispered name came crashing back through the heavy curtains. Malik al-Farid. The rival's presence was a shadow stretching across the emirate, a storm ready to devour everything the billionaire sheikh had painstakingly built. The palace, a fortress of gold and secrets, suddenly shrank beneath the weight of a threat that no wealth could buy peace from. The sheikh's gaze sharpened, a flicker of raw violence restrained behind his calm facade. His hand lingered an instant longer over Layla's, an electric pledge of protection amid the looming storm, before he released it slowly, as if afraid the fragile thread binding them would snap. "Malik is no mere adversary," he murmured, voice thick with warning. "He will not stop until every corner of this legacy has crumbled, including those I hold dear." Layla swallowed hard, her heart pounding a relentless drum in her chest. She had walked into a palace of illusions, but here, vulnerability blossomed like a secret flower in the desert night, a silent admission that the stakes were far beyond contracts and appearances. Her eyes searched his, dark, distant, haunted, and beneath the masked strength, she glimpsed something dangerously fragile. A man both imprisoned by his bloodline and fighting to protect a future he dared not envision alone. A servant's discreet cough shadowed the moment. The flicker of candles caught in polished urns cast quivering shadows as the room emptied, leaving the pair alone beneath the weight of history's gaze. The sheikh straightened, his silhouette towering against the velvet night spilling through the balcony doors. The scent of oud lingered like a whispered secret in the air, mingling with anticipation. "We must prepare," he said, voice low but decisive. "Malik's reach extends further than you realize. This meeting tonight, it will be our stage, but a perilous one." Layla's breath caught. The meeting meant the convergence of power-hungry families, aristocrats dressed in silk and poison-thin smiles. To survive here, she would have to don a mask thicker than any she'd worn before. Yet beneath the surface, something fierce stirred within her, a spark that refused to be extinguished. "I am no more than a pawn in your court," she said quietly, though defiance flickered behind her cautious eyes. "But if we must play their game, I will not be silent." The sheikh's lips curved, a ghost of a smile, tempered with admiration and regret. "You tread on shifting sands, Layla. One misstep, and the world you protect will swallow you whole." The moonlight softened the sharp angles of his face as he stepped close, voice dropping to a murmur meant only for her ears. "I have spent my life building walls of steel and gold, but every fortress has its cracks. You have seen one tonight, and I fear Malik will exploit it." Layla felt her pulse quicken, not with fear, but with a potent mixture of determination and something dangerously close to trust. The man before her was no longer just a distant figure confined to whispered rumors and palace shadows. He was real, deeply human, and achingly vulnerable. Outside, the palace hummed with quiet unrest. The desert wind wrapped around the marble pillars, carrying with it secrets scored into the sands. Somewhere in the labyrinth of corridors, eyes watched from shadowed alcoves, loyalists and traitors alike, their allegiances cloaked beneath silk veils. Later, as twilight folded into night, Layla found herself alone in her chambers. The sumptuous fabric of her gown, a strange armor, against the enormity of everything to come. Her fingers trembled as they brushed over the emblem on the small bracelet she now wore, an unspoken token from the Sheikh. It was delicate, yet heavy with meaning, a promise sealed not by words, but by presence. Her thoughts wandered back to the emblem on his cufflink, the silent sigil of a legacy both gilded and cursed. What shadows lay beneath that mark? What ghosts haunted the halls where he ruled? A soft knock startled her from the spiral of questions. The door creaked open to reveal a young servant, eyes wary yet loyal. "Lady Layla, dinner awaits." The whispered voice trembled with unspoken concern. "And a message." Her heart hitched. She reached for the note, her fingers unfolding the delicate parchment with care. The writing was terse, elegant, an anonymous warning wrapped in silk words. "Trust no guest, for Malik's venom seeps through gilded smiles. Tonight's dance hides more than secrets." A chill brushed against her skin, despite the heat outside. The palace walls, golden and radiant by day, felt like a gilded cage tightening. Layla folded the note slowly, the weight of it pressing down like a stone. Her mind raced. What game had she truly stepped into? And how deep did Malik's poison reach? The distant echo of music swelled through the corridors, the Empire's grand celebration inching closer to ignition. The billionaire Sheikh stood beneath the glittering chandeliers, a man cloaked in power, but shadowed by peril. His eyes sought the horizon, where destiny was weaving threads of fire and betrayal. A hand slid onto his shoulder, firm, familiar, the voice of a trusted ally breaking through the storm. "We have incoming," she said, her tone taut. "Not all who smile tonight come bearing peace." His gaze met hers, cold steel meeting warm fire. "Then let them come," he replied, "for I will burn the desert itself to protect what remains of my heart and of my kingdom." The music swelled louder, folding into the night like a rising tide. Outside, the first footprints of Malik's vengeance pressed into the sand, steady and unyielding. And in that vast hall of shimmering gold and whispered threats, two figures, Sheikh and pawn, king and rebel, stood poised on the edge of a storm that would change everything. But as the grand doors opened to welcome the night's guests, a figure cloaked entirely in shadow slipped silently through the back corridors, eyes gleaming with cold intent. The game had begun, and no one was safe from its deadly dance. The chandeliers cast fractured light across the vast grand hall, the glow swaying softly against tapestries embroidered with ancient tales. The air was thick with whispered intrigues, the murmur of silks brushing marble, and beneath it all, an undercurrent of menace winding through the veins of the palace like wildfire. The billionaire Sheikh stood near the center of the room, his posture regal and unyielding, yet his eyes betrayed the storm churning within. Malik Al-Farid's name echoed like a curse, twisting every shadow into a potential threat. His grip on tradition and power, so meticulously forged over decades, now seemed fragile beneath a blade he could not fully see. Layla, caught between sparkling chandeliers and piercing gazes, felt every pair of eyes like burning coals pressing into her skin. The grand hall was no place for uncertainty, yet uncertainty clung to her like a cloak. She appeared composed, but beneath the surface, her heart thundered against ribs that felt heavier with every breath. The glances cast her way were sharp, some laced with suspicion, others with thinly veiled scorn. Yet when the Sheikh's gaze met hers, steady, dark, and protective, an unspoken challenge passed between them. They were allies bound by fragile necessity, but also by the promise of defiance. As she moved through the room, the silk of her gown whispering secrets to marble, Layla sensed the unyielding talk of court politics weaving its web. Every smile was a mask, every compliment a calculated move. The billionaire Sheikh's presence loomed over it all like a fierce desert storm, drawing both reverence and hidden ire. In a quiet alcove, away from prying eyes, he found her again, his voice dropping to a low growl that vibrated with danger and desire. "Do you realize what you're asking of yourself?" Layla lifted her chin, eyes burning with resolve. "I ask only what is necessary to survive here, and to protect what little peace I can hold." He regarded her silently for a long moment, the distance between them thick with unsaid truth. Finally he reached out, fingertips barely grazing her wrist, a fragile touch, weighted with unspoken promises and threats. "The poison Malik wields is no mere weapon," he whispered. "It seeps through every corner of court, every whispered word, and soon it will reach you too." Her breath caught, the chill of the words slipping beneath her skin. "Then we fight, together." His fingers tightened slightly, a silent vow. But even as they stood close, a shadow flickered in the periphery. A figure cloaked in darkness, eyes gleaming with a cold flame. The look was brief, yet it cut through the growing warmth like a blade. The Sheikh's jaw clenched, his silhouette hardening. "They have eyes everywhere," he murmured. "We are not safe, not even here." The music swelled from the grand ballroom, the haunting strings intertwining with the low hums of voices plodding beneath crystal chandeliers. The celebration, a facade of grandeur, masking the brewing storm. Later, in the sanctuary of his private chambers, the billionaire Sheikh poured amber liquid into a heavy crystal glass, its surface shimmering with reflections of a past tangled in blood and dew. He traced the contours of the glass, lost momentarily in memories forbidden to share, of betrayals carved deep, of promises broken, and of a boy who grew into a man, forced to wear a crown that felt more like shackles. A soft knock disturbed the silence. "Enter," he commanded, voice taut. The door opened to reveal his confidant, her dark eyes sharp beneath a veil of loyalty and concealed worry. "News from Malik's camp," she whispered, pressing a folded parchment into his hand. "They move faster than we anticipated. Tonight's dance is but the prelude to something deadlier." His gaze hardened, shadowed by a fury that simmered beneath every breath. "Then we must be the wildfire that consumes before the poison spreads." Miles away, Layla sat by her window, the city stretching out like a sea of fleeting lights. The weight of the anonymous warning pressed against her heart, each word etched in her mind like a fracture threatening to widen. Trust no guest. Malik's venom? The message was a blade cloaked in silk. She touched the delicate bracelet the Sheikh had given her, their silent link in the storm, and for the first time tasted fear mingled with hope. It was no longer an illusion of safety she sought, but a fragile truth in a palace built on secrets. A sudden crash echoed from the corridor, shouts piercing the night. Layla's breath caught. The game had shifted, the stakes no longer hidden behind perfumed smiles and golden curtains. It was raw, dangerous, and brutally close. The doors to the grand hall burst open. A man appeared, clad in black, his face shadowed beneath a hood, but his presence undeniable, a herald of upheaval. The room fell to silence, every eye drawn to the shadow that dared to invade the heart of the empire. The billionaire Sheikh stepped forward, a tempest contained in a man, his voice ringing sharp and commandingly clear. This is no longer a game played with words and wiles. The war has come to our doorstep. His gaze swept the crowd before settling on Layla, who met it without flinching, her own fire ignited. As the stranger's eyes found the Sheikh's, a slow, cruel smile unfurled beneath the hood, and in that suspended moment, where futures wavered like flame in the desert wind, the billionaire Sheikh realized the true depth of the peril, and the tenuous link that bound him to the woman who dared to stand beside him. The shadow whispered a single word, one that thundered louder than any battle cry: vengeance. The grand hall remained frozen under the weight of the unexpected intruder's gaze. The air suffused with a tension that cut deeper than any blade. The crowd's murmurs hesitated, swallowed by the sharp declaration from the billionaire Sheikh. His presence, normally commanding absolute control, now carried the fragile pulse of a man poised on the precipice of war. Layla's breath hitched, but her eyes met his unflinchingly, a silent promise echoing between them. The shadows cast by the towering chandeliers seemed to lean closer, as if the palace itself was listening. The hooded figure stepped forward, the flicker of his smile only a whisper in the suffocating silence. Vengeance, he intoned, voice low and cold, is a fire that consumes everything, friend, foe, and flesh alike. All eyes remained riveted on the stranger. The atmosphere thickened with the scent of impending chaos. The billionaire Sheikh's gaze hardened, the royal aura melting away to reveal a man girded for the collision of legacies. Without warning, the cloaked figure pulled back his hood, revealing sharp features etched with cruelty and ambition. Malik al-Farid stood where the silence had broken, an arrow aimed squarely at the heart of the empire. His eyes locked onto the Sheikh's with an unyielding challenge. The room seemed to hold its breath. "You play with shadows, don't you, Sheikh?" Malik's voice cut like desert wind through stone, hiding truths behind bracelets and borrowed smiles. But the desert is unforgiving. Secrets buried in its sands always surface. The Sheikh's jaw clenched, the hardness of his gaze touching every corner of the hall. "My past is mine to bear," he replied, voice a measured storm. And any who threaten my future will face the fury of the desert itself. Layla's pulse thundered as the air between these two titans thickened. She felt the brittle threads of the fragile alliance stretch taut. This moment would not allow for weakness. The weight of the unspoken threat pressed upon her, but in her eyes burned a flame of fierce determination. Malik's smile twisted, a serpent poised for strike. Tonight the facades falter. Your precious kingdom will crack, Sheikh, and when it does, so too will the lies you hide behind. The billionaire Sheikh stepped forward, the marble beneath his feet seeming to resonate with his command. I have survived wars, penned in blood and lies. You are but another storm to weather. The murmurs of the courtiers swelled, some with fear, others with anticipation of the fall or rise that was to come. The Sheikh's eyes swept the hall, pausing briefly on Layla. His voice dropped to a rare softness, threading between power and vulnerability. Stay close. The night will not be kind, and every shadow hides a new peril. Her gaze locked with his, steady and unwavering. A silent affirmation of loyalty and something more fragile, hope. The palace's ornate windows framed the moon, a silent witness to the unfolding tempest. Beyond the shining marble, the desert's sands stretched infinitely, whispering of ancient struggles and promises yet broken. As Malik's sinister grin lingered in the charged air, a sudden commotion stirred near the entrance. Servants hurried past, whispers swirling like dust storms through the halls. The grandeur of the palace could not mask the urgent dread cracking through the night's veneer. The billionaire Sheikh exchanged a quick, sharp glance with his confidant, who had entered silently behind him. Her eyes conveyed a truth without words. Plans were already shifting, and time was slipping through their fingers like grains of sand. Turning back to the gathering, the Sheikh's composure solidified into steely resolve. This night is no longer a celebration. It has become the battlefield upon which our fates will be forged. Layla swallowed the knot of fear, tightening her throat. She had stepped into a labyrinth of power and deception, but now she understood that retreat was no longer an option. The fragile contract that brought them together had transformed into a fight not just for appearances, but for survival itself. Her fingers instinctively brushed the bracelet hidden beneath her sleeve, a delicate symbol of the tangled bond between her and the Sheikh. It was a reminder of all that hung in the balance: trust, danger, and a love neither dared fully claim, yet both could not deny. The hall's crystal chandeliers flickered with shifting light, reflecting the mask of courtly etiquette that barely concealed the roiling storm beneath. Every smile was sharpened steel, every compliment a veiled dagger. Malik's gaze swept over the assembled nobles, then landed once more on Layla. A cruel spark ignited in his eyes, a silent promise that this evening's dance would unravel everything. The Sheikh's hand found hers again, a steady touch amidst the chaos, grounding her in a tempest of shifting alliances and whispered betrayals. Remember, his voice was low but fierce. In this palace, loyalty is a currency more dangerous than gold. Just then the grand doors creaked open again, and a newcomer wove through the crowd. A man whose presence sent a ripple through the room. His dark eyes glinted with familiarity and menace. But what truly arrested the Sheikh's attention was the subtle emblem on his lapel, the unmistakable mark of Malik's closest confidants. The room contracted with sudden tension. The chessboard had tilted, and the next move would be bloodied. Layla's pulse quickened as the realization crashed through her. There were no safe corners left in this gilded cage. Their eyes met one final time, and in the shared silence between two worlds colliding, the billionaire sheikh whispered, "Prepare yourself, Layla, because tonight, trust is the deadliest gamble of all." And from the shadows beyond the golden light, a quiet figure watched with cold intent, lips curling into a smile that promised ruin. The game was no longer just survival. It was the beginning of a war that would consume hearts and crowns alike. The ballroom held its breath, the chandeliers casting fractured light that trembled against the elegant faces gathered under their glow. The tension was palpable, weaving through the crowd like a desert wind gathering strength before a storm. Malik al-Farid's presence was a jagged crack in the polished veneer of the empire, threatening to shatter every carefully constructed alliance. The billionaire sheikh remained poised, yet his gaze burned with a fierceness that no silk robe or golden setting could conceal. His grip tightened on Layla's hand, a silent anchor in the swirling sea of suspicion and malice. Her eyes locked with his, steady, defiant, unyielding. A declaration made without words. Malik's cold smile deepened as he surveyed the assembly, his voice slithering through the thick air. Vengeance does not discriminate. It consumes all. Honor, trust, love. Nothing escapes its fire. The room seemed to shrink, the grand tapestries and marble pillars fading behind the weight of impending doom. Whispers rippled like sandstorms, but none dared challenge the man who stood as the empire's defender. "You play your games beneath glittering chandeliers," Malik continued, "but shadows reveal what light attempts to hide." The sheikh's eyes darkened. "Your venom has traveled far, Malik, but no poison can undo what is forged in blood and loyalty." Layla felt her heart hammering, every beat a defiant rhythm against the fear threatening to take hold. She had stepped into a world where trust was currency, and this night would test the fragile bonds they had crafted. The bracelet around her wrist, a delicate chain of gold and diamonds, glinted faintly, a tether woven in secrecy and hope. A subtle shift in the crowd's energy caught her attention. Across the room, noble faces masked surprise and unease as a new figure entered. Tall, deliberate, his dark eyes flashing with a lethal calm. The emblem pinned to his lapel burned like a brand in the dim light, Malik's signature. The sheikh's posture stiffened. The chessboard inside the halls had tilted, and every player was recalibrating for a battle that extended beyond words and courtly smiles. Steps echoed softly behind the sheikh as his closest confidant emerged from the shadows. Her gaze met his with urgency, silent messages passing between them. "They're ready to strike," she murmured. He turned back to Layla, voice lowering into an intimate, fierce murmur. Tonight, the masks fall. We must be sharper than ever. She swallowed the lump lodged in her throat, rising to meet the night's challenges with every ounce of strength she could summon. The grand hall, with its fragile beauty and suffocating expectations, had become a battlefield she never imagined entering. His fingers found hers again, the touch steady but charged. "I've built walls of gold and steel to protect this legacy," he said. "But it's the people inside, the ones I trust, that keep the fortress standing." Her gaze softened with something unspoken, hope, fear, and the fragile desire for something more than the roles they played. Suddenly, a murmur rippled through the crowd. A servant hurried past, whispering warnings that carried like wildfire. "Urgent news from Malik's camp. The stakes have risen." The atmosphere thickened, as if the air itself had turned to molten glass. The Sheikh's eyes swept the hall, sharp and unrelenting, measuring every shadow, every whispered word. Layla's breath caught as the music from the grand orchestra faltered for a heartbeat, the delicate strings replaced by a tension that tightened her chest. From the flickering shadows near the grand entrance, a low, threatening hiss slipped into the night, an unmistakable sound of betrayal inching closer. A figure slipped forward, cloaked, but unmistakably a harbinger of the chaos unleashed upon the palace. The Sheikh advanced, every movement commanding, yet laced with the weight of personal war. "If Malik seeks to burn what I cherish, he will find only ash and fury," he declared, voice reverberating through the stunned hall. Their eyes met in a fierce clash, man against legacy, ambition against survival. Layla felt the echo of that defiance pounding through her veins, the fire igniting in her chest stronger than before. She was no longer merely a piece in this deadly game. She was a force intertwined with his, standing on the precipice of a future, terrified and yet fiercely fought for. As the crowd held its collective breath, the sharp clatter of armor from the back corridors sliced through the silence. Soldiers, silhouettes against the moonlit palace walls, moved with purpose. The tension in the air snapping like a drawn bowstring. The Sheikh's confidant touched his arm lightly, her eyes wide but resolute. "They've betrayed their cover. The battle lines are drawn." He nodded, the storm behind his calm facade breaking through in a fierce smile, one not of joy, but of battle readiness. "Then let the desert witness what it means to protect a kingdom and a heart," he whispered, fierce and raw. Layla's fingers curled tighter around his as the first embers of war ignited in the glinting eyes of the palace's silent watchers. The doors shuddered open once more, and with the arrival of new guests cloaked in authority and menace, the game escalated into a deadly dance of power, love, and survival. And in the chilling silence that followed, before the storm swallowed the palace whole, a single whispered word slithered through the darkness to the Sheikh's ear, a warning so cruel it seared deeper than any blade. "She's a spy." The frozen silence shattered as Malik al-Farid's cold voice echoed through the grand hall, each syllable slicing the opulent air. "She's a spy." The words landed like burning embers on the crowd. Gasps rippled, faces turned sharply toward Layla. their eyes narrowing with suspicion and accusation. Time seemed to slow, the glittering chandeliers casting fractured light that danced over the tension thickening in the room. The billionaire Sheikh's gaze locked onto Layla's, dark and steady, a fortress bred of myriad battles. His hand instinctively found hers, squeezing with quiet defiance, as if to shield the fragile hope woven between them from the storm breaking loose. Layla's breath caught, heart hammering a fierce, wild rhythm beneath ribs clenched tight. Her eyes met his, burning with a mixture of shock and fierce resolve. "I swear to you," she began, voice trembling yet unwavering. But Malik interrupted, stepping forward with a venomous smile. "Words are cheap in this palace of secrets. Proof will speak louder than promises." A courtier, pale-faced, unearthed a folded parchment and held it aloft for all eyes to see. An ornate seal marked the edges, but the handwriting was cruel and unmistakable. A list of commands, coded movements, and clandestine meetings, implicating Layla in a web of betrayal. The murmurs swelled to a roar. The Sheikh's jaw tightened, the steel in his gaze sharpening to a razor's edge. "Who sent this?" Malik's smile twisted. "Who else but those wishing your downfall? The hand that writes the venom often wears your own guise." The subtle accusation stung like salt on an open wound. The room teetered on the edge of chaos. Courtiers exchanging knowing glances, alliances shifting like desert sands. Layla shook off the paralysis that threatened to consume her. She stepped forward, every inch the woman who had survived judgment before. "I stand here innocent. My only aim has been survival, and perhaps, in time, loyalty." The Sheikh's eyes flickered with a shadow of hope before hardening again. A silent war waging between heart and duty. His voice, low and commanding, cut through the clamor. "Until the truth is known, no one is beyond suspicion." A sharp breeze from the open balcony brushed past them, stirring the heavy drapes and carrying with it the desert's cold whisper. A reminder that no sanctuary was safe from the storm outside. Malik's gaze bore into the Sheikh's soul. "This kingdom you cling to is built on fragile promises, and tonight it will crumble." The billionaire Sheikh's hand cupped Layla's face tenderly but with fierce protection, thumb brushing the tear that had caught the light. "If it crumbles, it will be rebuilt on truth and loyalty, not deceit." Beneath the glittering chandeliers, the night's celebration hummed with false gaiety, a masquerade of smiles, hiding wounded pride and bitter intent. But beneath it all, a new and dangerous game was afoot. Servants slipped through corridors like ghosts, bearing whispered updates, guards switching sides, letters sent in secret, eyes watching from hidden alcoves. Layla's mind raced, the weight of betrayal and the need for survival entwining like thorned vines. Could she navigate this treacherous maze and prove her loyalty? Could the man before her, masked in power, yet haunted by solitude, trust her with both his empire and heart? The Sheikh released her gently, stepping forward to address the gathering with voice ringing clear and unyielding. Tonight, we face a choice: crumble under threats or rise united. Let those who would poison our house step forward and show their hand. Eyes flicked nervously across the room, but no one dared meet his challenge openly. Malik's smile faded, his features darkening like a gathering storm. A sudden sharp noise from the shadows, a scuffle quickly stifled, set pulses racing. The Sheikh's confidant appeared at his side, whispering urgently, "They move to strike. We must be ready." He nodded, the storm beneath his calm breaking free in a fierce blaze. "Prepare the palace. Every soul loyal to this throne must stand firm." Layla met his gaze, unflinching. "And what of me?" she asked, voice steady, despite the turmoil swirling around them. His eyes softened, a rare, vulnerable warmth shining through the rage. "You stand with me, and no blade forged in lies will sever what we have begun." The glittering chandeliers flickered, painting the room with shadows that seemed to pulse with menace and hope alike. The desert night pressed close, bearing witness to the fragile alliance, forged amid betrayal. Malik retreated into the crowd, his cold stare promising impending chaos. The billionaire sheikh turned back to Layla, voice dropping to a whisper that only she could hear. "Tonight, trust becomes the deadliest gamble, but I would stake everything on you." Her heart flared with a mix of fear and fierce determination as the music faltered, then rose again, a battle hymn cloaked in silken melodies. And beyond the palace walls, victory. Unseen eyes watched from the darkness, waiting for the moment to strike. The game had deepened, the board reset, and the next move would decide everything. The accusation hung in the air like a storm cloud, unseen yet felt in every trembling breath. "She's a spy." Malik al-Farid's words shattered the fragile pretense of the evening. The grand hall's opulence seemed to close in, the golden light fracturing into shards of suspicion that pierced the assembled nobles. All eyes snapped toward Layla, their gazes sharp and unforgiving, as if seeking to unravel the very truth she had struggled to protect. Layla's heartbeat thundered, echoing like desert drums in the quiet that followed. The weight of countless silent judgments pressed down, yet her eyes found the billionaire Sheikh's, dark, unwavering, a tempest contained within steel. His hand reached for hers, fingers curling protectively, a vow ignited in the fleeting pressure. She swallowed the turmoil rising within her. Her voice, though trembling, rang clear. "I swear my heart holds no betrayal. My loyalty to him and this kingdom is all I offer." But the murmurs grew louder, weaving doubt like venom through the crowd. Malik's cruel smile curled as he stepped forward, brandishing a sealed parchment. The elegant script was clear, damning. Coded orders, clandestine meetings, shadowy ties. The room shifted. Whispers evolved into a chorus of doubt and accusation. The billionaire Sheikh's gaze darkened as he demanded, "Who sent this poison?" Malik's eyes gleamed with malicious intent. The hand that strikes is often hidden within one's own circle. Truth is a rare gem in this desert. His words cut deeper than any blade. The palace air thickened. the shimmer of silks and jewels, unable to mask the festering distrust. Courtiers exchanged wary glances. Alliances, once solid, now trembled like sand at the mercy of a storm. Layla stood her ground, her breath steady despite the chaos. "I am not the enemy you seek," she declared with quiet strength, "but I will not hide in shadows while innocence is questioned." Her gaze flickered once to the bracelet. Concealing her secret bond, a silent testament to fragile trust amid ruin. The Sheikh stepped forward, the commanding weight of his presence drawing stilled breaths. "Until this darkness is stripped bare, suspicion will shadow all." Yet beneath his royal armor lay a tenderness reserved only for her, an ache complicated by the growing web around them. A sudden draft swept through the chamber, stirring heavy drapes and carrying whispers from the desert's vast embrace. It was a reminder that even within gilded walls, no soul was unguarded. Malik's smile hardened as his words fell like a curse. This kingdom, built on fragile oaths, will soon crack beneath the weight of its own secrets. The threat was clear, a promise wrapped in menace. Tenderly, the Sheikh cupped Layla's cheek, his thumb tracing away a glistening tear. "If these walls fall, they will rise again on foundations of truth and loyalty, not lies." His voice was both balm and battle cry. The hall resumed its murmured dance of diplomacy and deceit. Gold and shadows intertwined. But beneath the glitter, a ruthless game unfolded, its pieces moving unseen by all but those attuned to the palace's dark rhythms. Servants slipped silently through hallways, whispers like footsteps of fate. Guards recalibrated loyalties in shadows. Secrets flew on silken tongues as trust grew thin as desert air. Layla's mind raced, the fragile contract of deception between her and the Sheikh, now a lifeline amid treacherous currents. Could she prove her fidelity to this man whose heart was both fortress and flame? Could their fragile bond withstand the storm blossoming at their feet? The Sheikh released her hand gently, then roared his resolve to the room. "Tonight we choose, surrender to shadows or rise united. To those who poison our house, show yourselves." His voice thundered over the gathering, cutting through the tension like a saber through silk. Eyes darted, but no one dared break the silence. Malik's smirk waned, his facade cracking like a worn mask. A sudden stir from the dark corners, a muffled scuffle quickly subdued, set hearts racing. His confidant appeared, eyes sharp and voice urgent. "They move. The strike is imminent." The moment crystallized, time suspended between calm and chaos. The Sheikh nodded, a fierce fire breaking through the calm exterior. "Ready the palace. All who swear loyalty must stand fast." His tone was steel, wrapped in velvet, a call to arms for hearts and swords alike. Layla met his steady gaze, unflinching. "And where do I stand?" she asked, her voice steady despite the swirling tempest. His eyes softened then, warmth piercing through the storm. "By my side. No blade forged from lies will sever what we have begun." The pledge hung between them, a fragile shield against the night. The chandeliers flickered, shadows dancing in rhythm with the rising tension. Outside the palace walls, the desert whispered of ancient vendettas and secrets buried beneath sands, still warm with promise and peril. Malik melted back into the crowd, a predator retreating to plan his next strike. The atmosphere shifted, charged like the silent breath before a desert thunderclap. The sheikh turned to Layla, lowering his voice to a whisper meant solely for her ears. "In this palace, trust is the deadliest wager, but I would stake everything on you." Her pulse flared with mingled fear and fierce resolve. The music wavered, a haunting melody threading through the halls, both lullaby and battle hymn. Beyond the glowing walls, shadows lengthened and eyes watched, calculating, waiting for the moment to unleash ruin. And as the night deepened, the true game began, where hearts and crowns alike would be lost or won. But hidden in a distant chamber, a figure moved with deliberate silence, lips curling into a smile, as cold and sharp as desert ice. For the whisper that broke the stillness, heard only by the keenest ears, was a chilling promise. The queen will fall first. The grand hall's tension shattered as Malik al-Farid's accusation lingered in the air. "She's a spy." The words ignited a storm among the gathered nobles, their eyes piercing Layla with suspicion that stabbed far deeper than any weapon. Yet in the midst of that growing chaos, the billionaire sheikh's hand found hers, grounding her with a steady strength that no whisper of betrayal could break. His gaze held hers, dark, unwavering, a silent pledge that transcended doubt. The palace, draped in gold and whispered lies, tightened around them. But between those two, a fragile flame flickered defiantly against the encroaching shadows. Layla drew a breath, heavy with both fear and determination. "I am no traitor," she declared, voice steady despite the turmoil blossoming around her. "My loyalty belongs to him, to this land, to all we've begun to build together." Her words, simple yet resolute, hung in the air like a challenge thrown directly at fate. The sealed parchment Malik held gleamed under the chandeliers, a cruel web of falsehoods and manipulations designed to fracture the fragile trust between them. The rune's murmurs swelled into a tempest of doubt and accusation, but the sheikh's gaze blazed with a steel forged in battles far older than this night. "Who sent this poison?" His voice was calm, yet beneath it roiled a storm. Malik's cruel smile only deepened, eyes narrowing like a viper preparing to strike. "Those who wish to see this empire undone. The ones hiding behind veils and smiles. Truth is the rarest jewel in these sands." The court fell silent under the weight of his words. Pawns and players alike, caught in a tide of shifting loyalties. Yet Layla stood unbowed, her heart pounding with the fierce hope that the truth would unveil itself and redeem what Malik sought to destroy. The sheikh stepped forward, an unshakable pillar amid the swirling storm. "Until we uncover the truth, suspicion shadows us all." His voice, laced with both command and quiet vulnerability, anchored the room. Gently, he lifted her cheek, thumb brushing away the faint trace of a tear that shimmered like morning dew. "If these walls fall, they will be rebuilt upon the bedrock of truth and loyalty, never on deceit." The murmurs of the court softened, but the undercurrent of intrigue never fully faded. Servants slipped through hidden corridors. Eyes watched from shadowed alcoves. The palace breathed danger, its opulence a fragile mask over a realm trembling on the edge. Far from the dancing lights and whispered schemes, Layla's mind raced. Could she prove her innocence, stand true beside this man whose heart was both fortress and flame? Could they build a future from the ashes Malik threatened to scatter? The sheikh released her hand gently, then turned to face the assembly, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade forged in desert heat. Tonight we face a choice: crumble beneath venomous lies, or rise together, unbroken. Those who would poison this house, show yourselves. Nervous glances darted, but none dared rise openly. Malik's smirk slipped, his mask cracking under the weight of a man who refused to yield. Suddenly, a quiet scuffle broke from the shadows, swiftly stifled, but igniting hearts with renewed urgency. The sheikh's confidant stepped forward, her voice a whispered warning. They make their move. The strike is coming. A fierce blaze ignited beneath the sheikh's composed facade. Prepare the palace. All who pledge loyalty must stand firm. Layla met his steady gaze, unflinching and resolute. And where do I stand? She asked softly, the tempest swirling beyond the walls, threatening to consume them both. His eyes softened, a rare warmth breaking through the rage and fear. By my side, no blade forged in lies can sever what we have kindled. The truth of those words shone brighter than any jewel in the palace. The chandeliers flickered as shadows danced, weaving a tapestry of menace and hope. Outside, the desert night whispered ancient secrets, bearing witness to the fragile alliance forged in fire. Malik melted back into the crowd, a predator retreating, plotting his next strike. The air shifted, tense, electric, as if waiting for the desert's thunderclap. Lowering his voice to a murmur meant only for Layla, the sheikh spoke. In this palace, trust is the deadliest gamble, but I would stake everything on you. Her heart erupted in a fierce crescendo, a symphony of fear mingling with fierce resolve. The music faltered, then roared. Anew, a battle hymn wrapped in silk. Beyond the gilded walls, unseen eyes waited, calculating, relentless. The game had deepened. The board was set for the final move. Later that night, beneath the constellation-studded sky, the palace stood like a fortress, breathing in the calm before the storm. The tense silence was filled only by the quiet steps of two figures moving through the labyrinthine corridors, Sheikh and Layla. Their hands touched loosely, an unbreakable thread weaving them together, not by contracts or appearances, but by a bond forged in trust, defiance, and a love neither dared claim, but both silently vowed to protect. He stopped in a chamber adorned with silken tapestries, a sanctuary from the chaos beyond. There at last, his mask fell away, eyes searching hers, vulnerable and raw beneath the regal exterior. Layla, he whispered, voice husky, with emotion. This legacy, these walls, they can bend and break. But you, he took her hands in his, you are the fortress I never dared hope to find. Tears glimmered in her eyes, not of sorrow, but of triumph. And you, my sheikh, are the man I will stand with, in every shadow, in every storm. Outside the palace windows, dawn's first light spilled like liquid gold across the desert sands, painting a new canvas of hope. The long night of intrigue, betrayal, and danger was behind them. Together, they were free. The halls that once echoed with whispered threats now shimmered with the quiet melody of peace reclaimed. The billionaire Sheikh and Layla stepped into that light, a future unshackled by secrets, embraced by love. Their hearts, once trapped in shadows, beat now with the promise of forever.